Hey, what's up you guys? Today I am going to talk about my postpartum journey. So as some of you may have known, I gave birth at the end of January 29th. I already put out my birth story, so if you haven't seen that already, I would suggest going to watch it. So I'll link it up above. So I'm going to go ahead and just begin, starting from straight after birth. So there was a lot of things that I did not expect postpartum, besides like the obvious like physical things. There was like one physical thing and some other mental things that I was not expecting at all. So general postpartum, I'm just going to talk about the nitty-gritty. So my birth was a vaginal birth. I was actively pushing for about 2 hours or so. I don't know the exact time. I feel like I'm a little off on that, but it was about 2 hours. I only had like barely a 1-degree tear, so she almost didn't even have to stitch me up. And then I had like an internal abrasion, just because it took him, Peter, a little bit to get under my pelvis, pelvic bone, excuse me, not under my pelvis. I was actually expecting a lot more since I was in labor for so long, but it worked out, I guess. I probably didn't have as much physically as some people will, but I did still have pretty much the same like recovery routine. It just probably wasn't to the extreme as some people, and my healing probably was not quite as long. So physically I did not have much I needed to do. So I used Coalesce for just making sure everything was soft. I started taking that the day before I went into labor, so I was induced. So I kind of just prepared beforehand, and so I started taking Coalesce a day beforehand, so I was soft down there. So when I did have a bowel movement, that it was okay. I remember my first urine being a little, it did burn, but I was expecting it, so that was something not 100% like surprise, it's here. I did do some research on that. However, this is one of the things that surprised me, is that I had no bladder control. I actually didn't know I went pee at all. And one of the nurses was concerned that I didn't go. So she ended up doing the catheter to relieve me, and nothing came out, and she was like, okay. So then I had realized that like I had no bladder control, and it was literally just coming out, and it did this for like the whole, by the end of my 3 days in the hospital, I could control it a little bit better. So like pretty much if I didn't go to the bathroom every 2 hours, if I stood up, it would literally just fall out of me. And I didn't realize that was happening. I was just like, oh, I'm kind of like damp down there. And when you have the instant ice pack pads, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, they kind of make you feel a little wet down there. So I thought maybe it was that, but I was actually like just peeing myself. Hello. So that was something I was not expecting. So for the first whole day, like if I wasn't going to the bathroom every 2 hours, I would just go, and right when I stood up, not necessarily when I was sitting. Oops, excuse me, the diapers in the box that I'm using as a tripod just fell. That's why the camera went wonky. So that was something I was not expecting. And I know that doesn't necessarily happen to everybody because my mom didn't know about it, but however, my grandma said something about like it happening to her. So that can vary person to person. Peter was on my bladder like the entire pregnancy. He was like kicking it all the time, making it very, very uncomfortable for me. So this could have been a reason why. I talked to my OB about it at my first postpartum appointment, and she said that could be it. I regained control, so I completely did not have any feeling in my bladder for about the first 2 to 3 weeks. It was actually right at week 4 when I started feeling like I had the urge to go to the bathroom again, in the bladder area. The other end I still had feeling in, but with the bladder I did not have any feeling in it. And like in the beginning it's because of the epidural, but as it went on it was just like what my OB described, it's more of like a nerve damage type thing from having a baby on your bladder for so long. Kind of like when you're like falls asleep. My bladder was asleep. So that was something I was not expecting or had ever heard of. So I definitely wanted to talk about that, even if like it's really, really gross to talk about. That was one of those physical things that I was not prepared for at all. So again, I do have a feeling, I do have urges to go urinate now. I'm still working on the pelvic control, because occasionally like I'll laugh or sneeze and some will come out. The doctor says as long as it's improving I don't have to go to pelvic PT. So I do Kegels, I do like a lot of like hip movements, like hip swirls, hip thrusts, those kinds of things. They help kind of build up your pelvic floor. It's kind of fun to do when I'm trying to get the baby to go to sleep, so we're like rocking and rolling. So that is very helpful because he likes movement. Again, some people's babies might not like that. So I'll just continue with the rest of the physical things. So in the hospital I just used all 3 things they gave me. So they did give me a whole lot of things. I know everybody's hospital is a little different. We went to Advent Health, which I know there are some of those in like Florida. Here in Kansas we have several. We have one big location and some small locations. So we went to Advent Health. So they did give us Tux, Dermoplast, the mesh pant, like a huge bags of mesh panties, and the huge pads, and some like thinner pads. I was pretty comfortable just wearing the mesh panties and the pads. I know some ladies like getting the diapers. I had the mesh panties when I had my miscarriage and I loved them. They were like super comfortable, breathable, like especially when it's so much moisture down there, especially with my bladder control issues. That was just kind of nice to have like something breathable down there. I wore those for 2 weeks before I was comfortable in putting my own panties on again. I used the huge pads for a week just because of the bladder issues. I was not bleeding as much as I thought I was going to be. Coming from somebody that's had a miscarriage, I bled more with my miscarriage than I did with my pregnancy. I did have a lot of like discharge. It was not as much blood as I thought it was going to be. So I did have some clotting, very small clots. They usually tell you as long as they're not bigger than a quarter size, you're okay. I had a couple of those in the hospital and they would just come and push on your stomach. Again, that's another thing, they immediately push on that like after you give birth, so be prepared for that. The one thing I was not expecting is like pushing into my belly button, so like push your fingers in your belly button and like push down. That was a little uncomfortable, but the overall pushing to me, which I'm a weird person, so don't expect yourself to enjoy it, but I like kind of enjoyed when they came and pushed on my stomach. It just kind of, I don't know, it felt like they were squeezing me out. I don't know how to explain it. It just kind of felt nice, and I'm weird. So they would come push on your stomach. So the first day they do it every hour, and then the second day they do it every 4 hours to kind of get things out. Anytime I had like some clotting, they would just make sure they'd come push on my stomach and make sure they did get everything out. It's partially to make sure they got the placenta and things out, and you're not going to have any other kind of hemorrhaging. So the mesh panties were really nice. Those large pads were really nice. I probably could have switched to the thinner pads had I not had urinary problems. So those thinner pads I probably could have used by the second day in the hospital. I didn't use those until about the end of the first week. So I used the big pads for like the first week, and then used the smaller pads the whole second week, and then I was probably in liners. The liners I had were really uncomfortable, so I just hated having them. But by the end of the third week, I was pretty much done with everything, so I stopped putting stuff in. Things I bought beforehand. I'm going into this before like my actual like care stuff, but the things I bought before going into labor, I only bought pads. The reason being is that I read something about in my What to Expect app about moms buying all this stuff and then end up having a C-section and then not needing it. When you don't have a vaginal birth, you don't need the ice packs. You may not need the tucks. You may not need the dermaplast. You might just need the pads. So I didn't want to risk it. So what I did instead, and this can vary person to person, but I thought it was a great idea. I have the Walmart app on my phone, and I just made a list of things I needed on there, ordered it, and then we went and picked it up like the next day after we came home from the hospital from the pickup, outdoor pickup, like the car delivery. I can't think of what it is. So we didn't have to go into the store. So everything they gave me, I went ahead and just ordered through Walmart. I ordered several different things, mostly what they gave me in the hospital. So they did give me dermaplast, they gave me tucks. By the time I got home from the hospital, I was out of the tucks. I did buy another can of dermaplast and I haven't used it, but I do carry it with me in my purse. I don't really need it anymore. And then I did buy a thing of ice packs. I only got into one of those because they gave me so many at the hospital. And again, if you need anything, you literally ask them and they give it to you before you leave, which is really, really nice. So if you don't know what anything look like, this is dermaplast. It's a really like cool relieving spray. I used this the longest. I think I stopped using it by the end of the second week, maybe the beginning of the third week. I didn't feel like I needed it anymore. I actually felt like I needed it more for my bottom than I needed it for my vaginal area, since I didn't have as much stitches. So my booty needed this. These Tux things, so they're medicated cooling pads. Again, I use these more the first and second week, so they look like this. I did have to get more of these, so this is the Walmart ones I ordered, so that you open it and they're just these little cooling pads. There you have witch hazel on them. When you put them in your panties, they have a cooling effect on them. The one thing I didn't like about them is like they would mix with my smells down there and they just smelled really gross. I like the smell of, I don't mind the smell of witch hazel, but like the smell of those with like everything else just kind of grossed me out. And they'd also kind of make me wetter down there, and I was already having issues. I started kind of felt like I was getting like itchy down there because I had so much moisture. So I would kind of alternate when I used those. In the hospital, I used ice packs like every time I changed things out. I still have some of my ice packs left. So these are what the Freedom Mom ones look like. The hospital ones are in a different packaging. But you have an ice pack in it, you fold it in half to break it, and then you put it in. It's like super long, and it feels really nice when you're having like itching and swelling and pain. So those are really nice to have. Once I realized they were creating a lot of moisture down there though, I kind of spread out when I used them. They do have a like pad in there, so it does like soak up a lot, so I'd put that over the pad. I put some Tucks on there and sprayed myself with Dermaplast, and it was amazing. But I also alternated when I use those. I mostly use them only when I like started feeling like pain. The hospital prescribed me, sorry, I had to interrupt myself. So I was taking ibuprofen, and then you can also take Tylenol when you're on ibuprofen. Once I got out of the hospital, I didn't do that. And then I was also taking Colace. I think by like halfway through the first week, I stopped taking Colace because I wasn't having that bad of bowel movements. Again, bowel movements weren't so bad in the hospital, but when I got out, even with the Colace, they were kind of painful. So just be prepared for that. And it wasn't because like stitches or anything, it was just very uncomfortable. Lots of pressure and those things. I think like you just have to like relax and let it happen, I guess. Very awkward to talk about pooping. Okay. And that's what I was taking. And then the last physical thing, so I wasn't having as much physical pain down there as I was up in my upper body, and that was from pushing. So I was expecting, I mean, I kind of was expecting because it's like a whole body thing, but you kind of crouch in to push, or that's how they had me have it do it. And all my shoulders, my abs, everything were super sore. So I was taking ibuprofen more for that than I was everything else. So that is everything that I can think of that was physically painful. Now I'm going to get into the more mental side. So the first day, so right after giving birth, all that, I was pretty much, I felt still like pregnant. So my hormones weren't like really like bad, but by the first night I don't know, I didn't really sleep. So the whole night I was in labor, I probably slept like an hour or two. I think I might have fallen asleep a little bit after I gave birth, and then I did not really sleep the whole time I was in the hospital. I would sleep like short little periods. It actually got to the point where I asked the nurse, because I was like, I feel really weird. She's like, okay, your job right now is to sleep 2 hours. So I slept 2 hours, kind of. Rested 2 hours without interruption with the baby. My husband took the baby and I slept. I had a lot of anxiety about baby, and so this is more of just not something I realized until I got home from the hospital, but I was having a little bit anxiety about falling asleep and not watching my baby. I was afraid something was going to happen, and I thought this was just kind of like, oh, I'm just getting used to having him, but it turned into a lot more. So The hormones were terrible the first 2 weeks for me. I was having a lot of anxiety during the day and the night. In the night, it got so bad that my face was numb. I was having trouble breathing. And I knew what it was just because I had had this in the beginning of my pregnancy, and I think I've talked about this in a different video, but at the beginning of my pregnancy I went to the doctor and they said that I was having anxiety, and it's because I had had a miscarriage before and I was so like anxious about it. So I knew this was the same feeling as then. It was just, now I had a baby and now I was afraid of them not living. I was afraid of SIDS and all the things that could go wrong. So the first 2 weeks I had anxiety, and then I found out postpartum anxiety is a thing. Typically people just talk about baby blues and postpartum depression. I did not know there was such thing as postpartum anxiety, and I had that. So mine, the first week it was all the time. The second week it was off and on during the day, and as soon as the sun go out at night, it would be all night. Third week, it was as soon as the sun went down, it would happen at night. The fourth week, I was having it still at night, but then I figured out and this was just by accident, my husband wanted coffee one night and I had a drink of coffee. And normally I know caffeine can increase anxiety, but this particular night I was like, oh, I want a cup of coffee too. So I made myself a cup of coffee, and I did not have anxiety as bad that night. And so from there on, at 4 o'clock every day, I would have coffee, and my doctor was like, okay, just let me know if it gets worse. I did not have any other postpartum things besides baby blues. I think everybody has baby blues this first 2 weeks. Mine started that first full day in the hospital. There was so much going on. So we had my doctor come in, or one of the representatives from my clinic, OB clinic, came in and checked on me, made sure I was doing okay. We had a photographer come in, take pictures. We had the birth certificate people, social security people, the nurses coming in and out, the food people coming in and out, the baby's doctor coming in and out. And so it was just constant all day, and it was very overwhelming. And by the end of that day, I was like, oh my gosh, it was just too much. That's when my hormones started getting like really bad. And I'm one of those people, if I get like overstimulated, I'm just like, leave me alone. So it just made my anxiety worse that day. And then I didn't want to go home. I did not want to leave the hospital. I took my first shower that second day. And I wanted to take my day after bump photo. Like, I took one before I had baby, and I wanted to take one afterwards to complete my bump journey video, and I put that in there, so I'll link that video up above. But I took my last bump photo, and when you see the video, I only did it from like the shoulders down or something, and it's because I was about to cry. I did not know this, since I didn't even look at the picture until after I got home, but I was breaking down. My face was bright red. I started crying, and this is when the baby blues started, or when I started noticing it. I was taking my bump photo, and it made me so sad that it was my last one. And also that I no longer had my little guy that would just hang out right here in my ribs all day, and I would sit there. I knew it was his little bum, because that's where when we did the ultrasounds it was, and I would just feel it, and I could, like, it was almost like a phantom bum was sitting there, and I would rub it all the time when he was in there, and it made me so sad that I couldn't do that anymore. It was over, and there's just so many like almost irrational emotions. Like, why am I feeling this way? My baby's in there. He's okay right now. It's probably maybe like he was safe in there, even though I was ready for him to come out because I was afraid of him being in there and being a stillborn and all these crazy mom things. And everybody told me you'll miss the bump when it's not there anymore, and that's very true. I was ready, 100% ready for him to come out. I was 100% ready to have my body back, and I definitely was like, my bump's gone and I'm sad and he's not in there anymore and I don't get the little kicks anymore and he's not just mine and I can't protect him in my body. Like, now I have to protect him on the outside, and that's a little bit harder to do because now I have to share him. Even though I was ready to share him with everybody, it was just a really weird, surreal experience when that happened. So I'm gonna post the whole bump picture on one side here, if I haven't already. You can see I'm crying. I also took another real photo of me having a mental breakdown right after this, and I'm ugly crying. I did feel good. That first shower is amazing. I did not take it till the day after I gave birth. It did feel really good. And that was also because I just felt like really unstable because of my epidural. Yeah, so that was the start of my mental journey. So now I am 6 weeks postpartum. I meant to take this when I was a month postpartum. I got interrupted. So I'm 6 weeks postpartum. I meant to do this like a month after my postpartum. So I'm just going to talk about where I am now. So as I said, the bleeding stopped about halfway through the 3rd week. My postpartum appointment was, well, maybe it's the 4th week. 4th week, my postpartum appointment was 5.5 weeks. That doesn't seem right. Yeah, it was 5.5 weeks because this is 6 weeks. So it was at 5.5 weeks. I got cleared for everything. Everything looked good. I'm still not feeling 100%, so I still have occasional tenderness down there, or like, I don't know, it feels like it's bruised. It's like a really weird feeling. It's still swollen, a little swollen. I just don't feel 100% normal. So I also have 2 weeks postpartum picture over here, so you can see my stomach and all that stuff. I did get stretch marks towards the end of my 3rd trimester on both sides of my belly button, a little bit above it, and I have like on one side. So you can see that. Right after you give birth, your belly is so squishy. It is like the weirdest feeling ever. So you can see, I think I did both sides. So this was 2 weeks postpartum. I have 1 week, or 2 days postpartum, and then I have 2 weeks postpartum. So you'll see those all have labels on them. And then I have 1 month postpartum. So I don't have a recent one. I don't think I have changed that much. I am at or just below pre-pregnancy weight now. I only gained 26 pounds, so I did not have very much to lose. I know right after I got done giving birth, I was way under my pre-pregnancy weight, and that's just because you lose so much fluid and blood and all that. So my belly is still squishy. The lower part of my tummy was super like loose. The upper part of my stomach, like above my belly button, was not necessarily loose. It was just squishy, but the lower part was like flabby. I was like, it talks. I'm weird. Stretch marks. So I went ahead and when I did my Walmart order, I got some of the Palmer's stretch mark cream, and that seems to be helping them fade some. I know it's going to be a journey on that itself. So they are starting to fade a little bit. You can kind of see the difference between my 2 weeks and my 1 month photos. And I feel like my belly shrunk down pretty fast, but it is still really, really squishy. So like I can push on it and all that, and yeah. I do feel, and these are just some other things that I have noticed, is that my heart rate is a lot lower than it was pre-pregnancy. And I know this just has to do with like you were pumping a lot more blood in your system. You had a lot more blood in your system. Your heart was working more to provide for baby. So it's kind of like if you run, your heart rate goes down. I'm just using this as an example, but if you run consistently, a lot of athletes have really low heart rates. So I noticed that. I would like to keep it that way because it's going to make marathon training a lot easier. So my heart rate has been down. I noticed because I had gestational diabetes that my blood sugar, my fasting blood sugar, actually had gone down while I was pregnant. Even with gestational diabetes, my fasting blood sugar had gone down. And then I had gotten it tested after my first postpartum appointment. I did pass. I do not have diabetes still. I'm not having any trouble with my blood sugar. So I had to do a 2-hour glucose test. So they drew your fasting, they made you drink the glucose drink, and they would draw your blood 2 hours later. So that came back normal. So I was pretty happy about that. Otherwise, that is pretty much as my postpartum journey so far. I do plan on updating 6 months postpartum, so look forward to that video. I know postpartum is a year-long journey or more, especially with the hormones, which are better now. I still am very I still have lots of mood swings, and that could be because maybe my body's getting ready to start a period. Still haven't done that. Again, I am almost 7 weeks. A little guy. I'm almost 7 weeks postpartum. I'll be 7 weeks tomorrow. So, I said I was 6 weeks. Whatever. So I'll be 7 weeks tomorrow, and I haven't started my postpartum period yet. So we'll see, but I will update again in 6 months and just kind of talk about more of the recovery, how my body's doing, and all of that. I am starting to work out again. I have done some walking. My energy is coming back. I'm starting to feel a little bit more like myself, but it's an odd journey because now I am not just me. I am a mom. You can see my little wiggle worm back there, and it's just something to get used to. So I will talk about that in a different video. So if you all have questions down below that I did not answer, or you would like to ask me more questions, I can make another postpartum video before my 6 month, but go ahead and just ask questions, or I can answer them down below. Make sure you give a thumbs up and subscribe so you can look forward to my next video, and I will see you all next time.